Hey everybody, where have you been? We've been waiting for you here on Pastor Have You Seen This, just to present to you some interesting internet content and give you some Christian commentary on it. And so what this is a little production of Allen Creek Community Church. I'm one of the pastors of this little local church in Marysville, Washington. And we just do this, hopefully for your edification, so that you can kind of just get another sense of how a Christian would maybe interact with some of the thoughts, ideas that float around about God, the Bible, Christianity, religion, or whatever. So you have something maybe in your mind that you'd like a Christian to, a pastor's take on. Well, hey, listen, send it to this right here, social@ac3.org, and we'd be happy to comment on it. So without further ado, let's see what I'll get a cold take on next.
They're like the head of that detention center, and he said, what is your faith? If you say you're Muslim, you can go out this door right now. If you say you're Christian, you're going to be tortured, you're going to be raped, and you're going to die. I opened my mouth and I said, I'm Christian. And that guy was shocked that I said that. And he said, tell me your testimony. That's going to be against you for your case. Because in Iran, being a Christian carries the death penalty or long-term imprisonment. So I shared my testimony, and this man at the end of that whole ordeal ended up crying and asking for the Bible. I was standing at...
Wow, that's incredible. So, a couple things come to mind when I see that. Number one is that, of course, Iran is the boogeyman for so much of... Boogeyman implies that it's not real, but yeah, Iran is the bad guy in so many ways on the world stage right now. But what you're not hearing come out of Iran, and I am hearing because I'm connected to the missionary kind of, scuttlebutt and talk that is coming out of the underground in Iran, is that there is a massive Christian revival going on in Iran. In other words, tons and tons of people are becoming Christians just like this woman. And for probably in part for this reason, the Christians are showing remarkable beauty and grace under persecution. Where does that come from? Well, it's very similar in other ways of persecution in other Christian eras. The early church's post-apostolic witness when under the fire of Roman persecution was what drew many, many Romans to faith in Jesus. Basically, two things they tell us, historians tell us, was a great impetus in drawing thousands of Roman pagans into the fold of the Christian faith. One was Christians' incredibly beautiful social programs. Basically, they, of their own initiative, of course, they couldn't mandate this from the top down. They just did it of their own accord. They served people who were poor and destitute. They rescued abandoned babies. They served widows and orphans, and they helped during plagues. But they also were incredibly brave under persecution. They faced their deaths with such remarkable grace and bravery that the Roman pagan could not help but sit up and take notice and ask, where does this power come from to have such grace under fire? It seemed otherworldly to them, and it led many, many to come into the fold. Well, the same thing is happening in Iran. So in this particular case, I'm all geared up for the story of her, torture. Obviously, this story would not end in her long-term imprisonment and or murder, because there she is telling a story in what looks to be uninterrupted or very excellent English. So she's been in the West for a long time. But what a story, right? What a story. And it does sort of say something to the Christians in the pampered West who imagine that persecution consists of someone saying mean things to me on TikTok or on Facebook. So yeah, we do not know of what real persecution probably looks like. Nevertheless, there are Christians changing their country one heart at a time in a place that's closed to the gospel, and as you can see, actively persecuting Christians with the threat of death, imprisonment, or torture. The other thing that's coming out of Iran, just anecdotally, and it's related, but not what the video's about, is that God seems to be conducting a wild sort of supernatural evangelism program because so many new Iranian converts are telling the story of how they were reached by Jesus in dreams. And this is across the Muslim world, but we're getting a lot of these stories out of Iran, some of which stories I've shared before. So I won't go into them, but this is another thing that's happening in Iran that is wild and speaks to just the beauty of God, loving all people and wanting to reach absolutely everyone. The idea that there is a perfectly unreached people group is a bit of a misnomer. We talk to people about their problem with unreached people in investigations, and how it maybe seems unfair that there are people that stand outside the stream of God's revelation history. And there are, I guess, problems to deal with on that front, but everybody in the world, and that would be all 7 or 8 billion of us, are being reached by God in some way, shape, or form. There is natural revelation that is God reaching out to all of us through the things that he has made, communicating certain content to us. And then there's God communicating to us in conscience, and that is also God communicating to every single man, woman, and child. So God is in some sense reaching and after and exhibiting the Father heart for the prodigal around the world. In Iran, we see this beautifully, and then it commingles these supernatural overtures of God through creation, through conscience, and then through the miraculous medium of dreams. And then people are turning to Christ in really startling numbers. So you have that going on simultaneously with the Iranian regime being seriously oppressive and totalitarian. So all glory to God, and what an incredible story of what God could do when someone is just bravely willing to stand up for Jesus. And there in the middle of that torture chamber, she couldn't imagine that someone was actually hungry to know the truth and saw it in her, and then therefore wanted to know how he could get in touch with that. That's not the first time that's happened, by the way. The Bible has a beautiful story in Acts of Paul and the Philippian jailer. So I invite you to look at that from Acts chapter 17, 18. Don't quote me on the chapter and verse, but the beautiful story of Acts and the Philippian jailer, very similar in the results of someone standing up and having a winsome witness under fire for Christ. I hope that God is changing your life in the same way, and that he would make you brave in difficult times, and that would speak a sermon to your neighbor, and maybe sometimes without saying a word. All right, until next time, we will see you here on Pastor, Have You Seen This? Thanks for tuning in.